The morning fog still clung to the fields when Carl noticed something strange. He was sipping his coffee, leaning on the porch rail, watching the goats wander near the fence line. The sun hadn't fully broken the horizon yet, and everything wore a pale grayish hue. That's when he saw it. One of the goats, Missy, a smaller one with a torn left ear, stood upright on two legs. Not rearing, not jumping. Standing. Balanced. Still. At first, Carl squinted, thinking maybe his tired eyes were playing tricks. But Missy didn't fall. She didn't move like an animal at all. Her limbs were stiff, her posture too perfect. Then her head turned, slowly, unnaturally. She looked at Carl, and she laughed. It was soft at first, raspy, childlike. But it grew louder, deeper, echoing across the empty field. Carl's coffee cup slipped from his hand, shattering on the porch. Missy dropped back onto all fours and disappeared into the tall grass. Carl didn't speak of it that day. Not to his wife, not to the men at the feed store. He simply told himself it had been a dream. Too little sleep, too much sun. He went about his chores, tried to forget. But by the end of the week, other farmers started talking. Dale Thomason saw 3 pigs waddling in perfect formation along his fence, said they stopped, turned their heads at the same time, and stared at him for a full minute. He went to grab his shotgun. By the time he came back, they were gone. Mrs. Elkins found her henhouse empty one morning, except for a single egg, painted bright red with a smiley face drawn on it. They all laughed it off in the diner. Blamed heat stroke, TikTok kids, weird viral marketing stunts. But laughter started to feel like fear in disguise. Then Carl woke up one morning to silence. His fields, usually buzzing with animal sounds at dawn, were dead quiet. Every goat, every pig, every cow, gone. No broken fences, no tracks leading away. Only one thing remained: hoof prints, everywhere, pressed deep into the mud, circling the house. And on the side of the barn, someone, or something, had painted a long, curling smile in thick red strokes. Carl stood there, staring at it, the morning sun rising behind him. And from the cornfield nearby came the sound of laughter. The goats never came back. Carl filed a report with the sheriff, but no one seemed to take it seriously. Animals wander, they said. Coyotes, maybe. A prank, most likely. But Carl knew what he saw, and deep down, so did everyone else in Red Hollow, because it wasn't just Carl anymore. Within days, other farmers reported strange sightings. A cow with red spirals painted around its eyes. Chickens pecking in a perfect circle, never blinking. Pigs, once docile, now gathering in rows at the edge of pastures, facing the farmhouse like an audience. Then the faces started showing up, painted on the animals, clown makeup, bright red lips, white around the eyes, jagged teeth drawn on soft fur. At first, it looked like paint, until someone got close enough to realize it wasn't drawn on, it was part of them. They had changed, and they were organizing. People began spotting figures in the fields, humanoid shapes with wide grins and oversized hats. Clowns, but not like from TV or children's books. These ones wore denim, boots, and worn-out overalls, blending in with farmhands, until you saw the faces, the eyes. The painted skin pulled tight over something that wasn't quite human. They didn't speak, they just watched. One night, the town preacher, Reverend Harrow, stood up during Sunday service and declared it plainly. This is no plague of beasts. This is demonic. People laughed, but not for long. That very night, the Miller family's golden retriever, Scout, went missing. They found him the next morning, laid out neatly on their porch, skinned clean, and wearing a red rubber clown nose. No one laughed after that. From that night on, laughter became the most terrifying sound in Red Hollow. Because now it didn't come from people. It came from the shadows in the corn, from the woods just beyond the fences, from the mouths of creatures that should never have known how. And when the sun went down, no one dared look out their windows, because sometimes they saw something looking back, and it smiled. Eli Peterson was the first to go missing. A quiet, curious boy of 7, Eli loved animals more than people. He was last seen playing near the edge of the cornfield behind his house, where the goats used to graze before they vanished. His sister, Katie, was the only witness. She told her mother in a trembling whisper, "A cow in a tutu took him." No one believed her at first, until they found the footprints. Hooves, perfectly round, too symmetrical, and beside them, bare human feet, small ones, the size of a child's. The sheriff organized a search party. They swept Carl's abandoned farm first. The place was falling apart. Barn doors splintered, fences warped, fields dead and dry like something had sucked the life right out of the soil. Inside the barn, they found circus posters pinned to the rotting walls. The paper was damp and yellowed, but the ink looked fresh, red, wet, smeared. Each one read, "New show, new acts, new faces." No one said a word. They just kept searching. One deputy pried up the warped floorboards near the old hayloft. Beneath them was a crawl space, dark, damp, and filled with straw, soaked in something thick and black. At first they thought it was mud. Then they smelled it. Rot, copper, blood. Etched into the wood were bizarre, spiraling symbols, some carved with knives, others gouged out with what looked like hooves. None of it made sense, until Deputy Rourke spoke what everyone had been thinking, but didn't want to say. These aren't animals pretending to be clowns. He swallowed hard. They're clowns, pretending to be animals. That night, Carl's old windmill started spinning wildly. No wind, no storm, just the sound of creaking blades, and laughter drifting on the still air, weaving between the trees. The town realized something terrible. They weren't trying to take the animals, they were taking the farm. And Eli, he was just the opening act. Red Hollow began to rot from the inside. Phones stopped working. Calls wouldn't go through, screens filled with static, and even emergency lines played carnival music instead of a dial tone. The roads twisted in on themselves, looping endlessly like a track built for show ponies. No one could leave. No one could come in. Every night, new horrors appeared. Scarecrows shaped like clowns stood in freshly plowed fields, arms outstretched, grinning wide. But they weren't made of hay. They wore flannel from the local thrift shop. One even had Sheriff Willard's missing wedding ring sewn into its chest. And their faces, they were all familiar, painted to look like townsfolk. Inside their homes, people began having the same dream. Their families, their friends, everyone they knew, standing in a circle, painted like clowns, animal heads stitched over their real faces. Some mooed, some oinked, some honked like horns. But they all smiled, and all chanted the same thing. The show must grow. At the church, the remaining residents gathered, terrified, trembling, armed with whatever they could find. They barricaded the doors, sealed the windows, and waited. Some prayed, some cried, some just stared, listening to the laughter in the distance grow louder, closer. At midnight, the first hooves hit the church steps, pigs on 2 legs, goats in makeup, chickens with bloody tutus. And walking among them were the clowns, overalls soaked in dirt, pitchforks in hand, their eyes glowing with madness. The pastor raised his cross. One clown threw a pie. It exploded on the wall. Red, not whipped cream, blood. The clowns began to juggle axes, and someone whispered from the back pew, "We're not surviving this, are we?" No one answered, because the doors had started creaking open. They came into the church like performers entering a stage. The animals moved first, walking tall, twitching, heads tilting side to side as if listening to music no one else could hear. behind them came the clowns. Some had goat horns, some had cow hooves. All wore stitched-together smiles, stretched too wide over faces too pale. The preacher tried to speak, but one clown silenced him with a balloon animal, twisted into a noose and dropped at his feet. Then the music began. Somewhere outside, an old calliope wheezed to life, notes sharp and uneven, like bones cracking in rhythm. The pews were torn apart. Townspeople were dragged into the fields, not killed, transformed. Each was invited to perform. One by one, they were fitted with masks, crafted from real animal hides, painted with circus colors. Some were given tails, others hooves. Some were sewn into suits with fur and feathers still wet from the source. They became part of the act. Katie watched as they brought Eli forward. He didn't cry, didn't speak, just smiled beneath the thick rubber horse mask stitched directly into his skin. He bowed to the crowd, and they cheered. Over a loudspeaker crackling with static, Carl's voice echoed across the cornfields. But it wasn't really Carl anymore. It was something wearing his voice like a mask. The show must grow. The harvest is good. Laughter followed, endless, droning. As the sun rose the next morning, a new sign stood just outside town, freshly painted, wood still damp. It read, "Welcome to Clown Farm, smile for the harvest." And down the dirt road where no car would ever pass again, the pigs walked 2 by 2, heads held high, painted smiles beaming, and they laughed.